So I'm currently in my very last week of classes and lectures in medical school, at least the pre-clerkship portion before we go into our step one dedicated time and rotations. And I thought this would be the perfect time to share some of my thoughts, reflections, and honestly just kind of what's been on my mind as I go throughout my first year. Yeah, this video is kind of going to be uncut. I'm going to try to be unfiltered. In the past, I've tried to make a YouTube video where I edited and spliced everything together, tried to make it perfect. But here, I'm just going to kind of go off the top of the dome, make it more casual. And honestly, hopefully at the end of the video, you can take away some of the things that I've found to be really like the most important that I've taken away from medical school. Yeah, to start off, why am I starting a YouTube channel to address the elephant in the room? So, number one reason is that I've always wanted to do this. I've actually tried to make a YouTube channel in the past. Last summer, actually, before medical school started, I remember trying to set up an entire, set on YouTube, try to script every little thing that I said in the video, share some advice. Really was kind of unsure, and then things ended up falling through the cracks. And I think it all kind of boils down to a few things, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But for now, I'm not going to try to stage anything. I'm just going to try to sit down, talk, share my thoughts, share part of my journey as I go through medical school. And I feel like people will be able to relate the most that way. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely stick around. I realized that I can, help other people one-on-one or, offer my guidance and offer my reflections on my journey so far, share the ups and downs in person. But obviously there's leverage that comes with being online. YouTube is something I've always enjoyed watching. So it kind of just, the logic follows that I make my own videos to be able to share them with other people, hopefully people that are either aspiring to be, in medical school one day, that are also on the medical school journey, or just trying to pursue anything really professionally in life, or just want to follow along with my journey. So that's kind of, the framing around my, number one reason for starting this YouTube channel. The second thing is I want to be able to keep track of my journey. So I've always kind of been that friend in the friend group that takes pictures and photos and videos of everything. I love the idea of being able to document something and scroll back through and look at all the progress that I've made along the way. So hopefully as I kind of progress throughout this time here that I have in medical school, residency, the future beyond, I'm able to kind of look back and see the progress. Hopefully you all will be able to kind of share along in that journey with me. Along the way that I've been developing. So I think there's value in people seeing the real journey in this experience. Obviously, people know online what, as much as they can read or as much as they can see what other people are doing. But as best I can, I'm going to try to share the actual ins and outs of the journey and kind of have y'all follow along the way. So plus, med school doesn't leave a lot of room for creativity. That's currently what I'm doing with my professional life right now. But I've also always wanted to have a creative outlet on the side. I don't consider myself much of an artist, but I have always been interested in creating videos, videography, and kind of honing my speaking skills, per se, like so to speak, for videos. So this will be kind of a fun way to express myself and, have other people enjoy that with me. So, and then finally, the last thing is just to kind of improve myself, kind of make myself a more well-rounded person. I know I'll be really bad at this at first. Honestly, this first video is going to be, zero expectations for this, right? But, having those expectations low, but, giving it your best, I figure that, if anything does come out of this, then, that's just pure upside for me. So being vulnerable can be uncomfortable, but that is where the growth happens, in my opinion. In life, I can't think of any time where I've significantly grown or made huge improvements in what I'm doing without putting myself in a position that's very uncomfortable. So it is, needless to say, it's very uncomfortable right now. Even just recording this video, I had a lot of hesitation in starting it. It doesn't feel natural yet to talk to a camera. So hopefully those are things that kind of change over time. I want to make sure that I don't get stuck in my comfort zone, like I said. So always kind of pushing it to where it feels a little bit uncomfortable. That's how I know I'm doing the right thing. And imperfect action is better than no action. Like I said before, I was trying to, before, get every little detail perfect, try to, monitor, and refine myself and really filter down what it is that I'm trying to express. But I realize at the end of the day, it's better that I just kind of like be the person that I am on YouTube, and if people want to follow along, they can. But the whole idea of this is to document and to grow myself as a person anyway. So yeah, and then honestly, I could use the speaking practice, and I think it'll be really fun. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, happy to have you here and join along the way. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and dive into some of my first reflections that have happened after an entire year or more. I think we're over 60 weeks at this point in to medical school. So I'm going to give you 3 key areas of my life that have been kind of impacted the most by medical school. So number 1 is obviously academics. Really, one thing that people don't say too much about medicine, there's the huge like drinking from a fire hose analogy, but really I think the best way to describe it is like it's learning a new language. You're immersed in an entire different culture. You're surrounded by people that speak that same language. It really feels jarring, like you're set into another country and left alone for weeks at a time when you're first starting out, because it's just all these foreign terms. Sure, you've done the MCAT and you've done all these weeks of training that are supposed to set you up to start out, but nothing can really prepare you like a Spanish class can't fully prepare you for being dropped into Spain, right? So yeah, and then you can't also just memorize. But to me, that's been a really, really good thing about medical school, is that you have to actually understand why things matter. And that makes perfectly, obvious sense in the sense that you're going to be helping people in an actual hospital setting, right? These things, if you just kind of memorize, don't bear the same weight, and they also aren't going to be useful to you when you're trying to help other people and do your professional job. If you kind of memorize these things, they all work together. It'd be like memorizing words out of a language instead of just understanding what they mean in the context of other words. So that's where that language analogy comes back into play. And it also just kind of is a forcing function. It's a natural forcing function on the best way to study. Like, you can watch as many, YouTube videos, talk to as many friends, mentors, whoever you want about what the best strategy is to study. I can tell you right now, when you're launched into a sequence of school that involves a quiz every single week that you must pass, actually not must pass, but you get the point. When you're launched into such a rigorous academic institution where every single week, back to back to back, you're responsible for not only learning the new material, but maintaining all of the previous week's material. And there is, clinical relevance to everything that you're doing. You quickly learn what study strategies are, kind of not useful. You will only keep the most pertinent study strategies, and everything is going to be different for everybody, right? So, and that's the thing I love the most about it, is that even after everybody's been forced to, not, I say forced, but it's kind of, in a good way, you kind of discover and find what works for you as a person. People still have different study strategies, and I think that's amazing. It just speaks to the nuance of the different study strategies that do exist. And I can maybe speak about those in a future video, but that's just something to keep in mind. So the second area of my life that was most impacted in this first year of medical school has been obviously my personal life. So this year has been definitely humbling. So the best way I can describe it is that medical school is like you take the biggest group of, like dedicated, nerdy, academic loving, caring people that you can, and you put them all into one giant room, and then you have them all work on the same, thing, and, aspire towards the same goal. So if you can imagine, that is a very humbling experience, where you can go from being, somebody that is very, very confident and very, very comfortable in their own study strategies to somebody that's right in the middle of the pack, if not lower in the pack, right? So those are all things to kind of consider with medical school that you don't quite fully get until you're immersed and launched into it, right? Everybody's hardworking, everybody's kind. You'll meet the best people and some of the closest friends you'll have in your entire life. But needless to say, that has been a huge change in my personal life. The other thing is like imposter syndrome. feeling real stress and anxiety for the first time, understanding the importance of mental health. I think if you can kind of take a step back, you realize that even though we do have all of this on our plate, that does cause a lot of people to think that they don't have room for their mental health, taking care of those things. And for people that never really had to think about it before, I consider myself pretty fortunate in that aspect of things. But I really have had to kind of sit back and make room for myself that I've never really had to before in medical school, and realize the importance of that, mental health and trying to balance everything that I have going on. So, and I think that's something that basically all of my classmates, at least that I've spoken to, can relate to. So, imposter syndrome, stress, anxiety, all of those good things. But you kind of I feel like you connect with yourself, you get a deeper understanding of who you are and what you're about, and the kind of things that are essential to you to help you function and to help you thrive, right? And sometimes you don't see the wins day to day, but you have to trust the process. That's another thing. Is like, we're all working towards a very long-term goal here, right? And we can't expect every day or even every week to receive feedback on the hard work that we're putting in every single day, to say, hey, you are doing the right thing, or hey, keep going. So we just have to keep in mind, how like a very long-term process, and that's something that you don't always get in, let's say, like undergrad or high school, where you have your quiz, you immediately get your grade back. We're all working towards a lot of times board exams or applications that are years out, or months out at least. So it can feel like we don't have great feedback, but it also just lets you lean on yourself and trust the process. So that's one of the biggest takeaways I've had in my personal life as well. And then finally, I've always had FOMO. I feel like I've always been a person that's wanted to hang out with other people all the time, and I've always wanted to say yes to everything. But as you can imagine, I have had to learn to say no, and that has been one of the biggest changes in medical school as well. And it's not all just a bad thing, right? So weirdly, that made the things that I actually care about that much more enjoyable, because now the things that I do say yes to, the weekend trips that I do take with friends, and the time I do get to spend with loved ones, has now become so much more meaningful outside of the meaning that I derive from my work. Sure, you may not get to go on the extra hangouts here and there, or grab a coffee to catch up with somebody that you wanted to, but at the end of the day, the things that are near and dear to your heart and that are most important to you will stick around, and if anything, amplify in medical school. And that brings me around to the very last and third point that I'm trying to make. My camera did die in perfect fashion between that second and third clip. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and reintroduce the third idea, which is my career identity and how that's changed after my first year of medical school. So every few years, I feel like life brings about a change. So for example, between like middle school and high school and college, and college and medical school in my case, but really kind of as life pertains to academics, you have seasons that kind of change. And I can confidently say, reflecting back on all of those changes between each of those steps of my education, that there isn't one that has stood out in terms of just sheer just difference and change, like no other really, between undergrad and medical school. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a big deal to move from high school, get out of your house. It's really the first time you get to explore your life and your hobbies. But medical school is such a strange time, because it feels like as other people kind of go enter the workforce or start, whatever they're doing in their careers, your career begins to take on, your work at least is academics, right? And so that is kind of a blessing, and it can also be a curse sometimes. But for the most part, I think it's very cool. Number one, because in undergrad, really everybody that you're surrounded by is generally in the same ballpark of age, has similar kind of family backgrounds. But when you jump into med school, it can be a little bit strange because you have new people, people from all different stages of life, people that have families, people that took several gap years, people that took none, people that had full career paths before or outside of medicine or inside of medicine before starting their journey towards an MD. So all of those are kind of huge changes that you don't kind of fully like get a feel for until you're dropped inside of medical school. And what I feel have contributed to this huge change. And it's almost like I'd like to think I'm still kind of early on in my life journey, but it's kind of also like a half early midlife, quarter life crisis, whatever you want to call it, because like I said, as other people are kind of starting their career journeys or seem to have like a very outlined sense of when they can delineate work from their free life, you feel like you're always working and you feel like you're always trying to stay afloat, if you will. And for the first time, I feel like I have what I will say is the good part of medical school, a purpose bigger than myself, right? So knowing that one day all of these pieces of information are not like just some bits to memorize or fun facts that you can say at your family gathering. These are genuinely going to help people and save people's lives at the end of the day. And that makes a real difference, not only in the lives of all the people that, my classmates and I are going to be impacting, but when you're, at your wit's end studying material or trying to make rationalize to yourself why you need to stay in the library however many more hours or work however many more hours you need to. It all has a serious meaning, and it all like plays into kind of who you're going to be and the careers that we're going to be able to take on and the lives that we're going to be able to help. So and that's kind of what keeps me going, and I think what keeps a lot of my classmates going in these kind of the days that get more difficult. Don't get me wrong, medical school has some of the most fun experiences. We work hard, but we also have a lot of fun when we don't. So but just having that strong sense of purpose that all of us have, that professional identity, knowing what's out there and what lies ahead of us, is kind of what keeps us going, and what I think is distinctly unique about medical school as far as career identity versus any other kind of one of those academic journeys or thresholds that I've crossed up until this moment. So with all that being said, I'm really happy to kind of bring y'all along on this journey and to start this out. That's my quick reflection over 1 year. I don't expect this YouTube video to blow up or anything. I just want to kind of share my journey and see what happens along the way. As I said, if you found this video helpful, then that kind of aligns with what I'm hoping for this to be. But if you find it relatable or just want to stick around for more, please do. But in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.